Hi everybody, thanks for joining us here on News Center Maine Plus and on our streaming apps with an update on the storm. I'm meteorologist Ryan Breton. We still have rain and a lot of wind out there, and the outage numbers have been creeping up over the last hour. They've more than doubled as the winds have come up a bit. We're still looking at a peak gust so far of 67 miles per hour in Bar Harbor, Augusta 56, Bangor gusting to 54, but Dana Osgood and I were just talking. There may have been an issue with the sensor there that may have gone down temporarily. So not sure if it's gone higher than that in Bangor, but I've heard from some of you on social media that in Bangor and Brewer, it's been a rough few hours. 50 mile per hour gust in New Harbor, 44 in Glenburn, and in Portland, the peak gust 43 miles per hour. Here are the outage numbers as of 10 o'clock. If you were with us at 9 o'clock, there were about 9,000 CMP customers without power. That's now up to about 22,000. And the Versant coverage area, about 12,000. And then Emic, about 505. I took a few notes with some of the hardest hit towns. Wilton in Franklin County, 2,100 customers without power. Augusta, about 1,100. In Waldo County, Unity, almost 100% out. And in West Bath, that part of Bath, 100% of the customers there are out. In the Versant area, Deer Isle and Stonington, also about 100% of those towns with, without power at this time. So that's an update on the outages as it stands now. Here's a look at the storm, which is coming up from the south, but it is rolling along. So we've only got a few more hours of this. This cold front is approaching western Maine, and once the front goes by, the wind will switch direction. And once the wind switches direction, the risk for damaging winds and additional power outages will be reduced significantly. But it is pouring out there really hard now in Bangor with downpours, also raining quite hard through the mountains of western Maine and New Hampshire. And we have this area of heavy rain, which may contain some strong wind gusts that's working through the Gulf of Maine and will head into the mid-coast in the next hour to an hour and a half. So strong winds still possible, especially on the mid-coast and around Penobscot Bay, perhaps even a bit higher than we have seen so far. The temperatures tell the story here. If you are in the 40s or even 30s, you're not really going to get any strong gusts. That cold air acts as a protective layer and prevents the strongest gusts from mixing down. But we're in the 50s in all of eastern and northern Maine, most of central Maine, southern Maine, and especially right near the coast in southern Maine. As you get into interior York County, not quite as warm, but it's in these areas where we've had the gustiest winds. Notice how they drop off once you get really west of Sebago Lake into interior parts of western Maine, most of Oxford County and New Hampshire. We have not had many wind gusts there, but the winds are still cranking. 47 miles per hour, the current gust in Augusta, 38 in Bangor, 47 in Bar Harbor, and gusting right now to 30 miles per hour in Portland. Looking at one of our computer models, and this runs every hour and refreshes, it gives us an idea of where we're going from here. I think we've got maybe an hour for another strong gust or two in Portland, and then they should begin to drop some. But still in central and mid-coast Maine through about midnight tonight, the potential for some gusts passing 50 miles per hour. And then by midnight, the strongest winds will be around Penobscot Bay, Bangor, and down east, and they still could be in the 50 to 60 mile per hour range, especially out on MDI through about 1 in the morning. But look at how things vastly improve to the west. So if you're in central and southern Maine and you have your power still around midnight, odds are pretty good that you'll keep it. There may just be a few minor outages after that as the wind switches direction and comes in out of the west during the day tomorrow. The Weather Service has actually dropped the high wind warning for coastal Cumberland and York counties, replacing it with a wind advisory, which seems appropriate as in these areas the outages have been isolated. They have been more widespread in this high wind warning area. That's really where we've seen them increasing in central Maine, mid-coast Maine, much of eastern and northern Maine as well. This is where additional outages are most likely over the next few hours. Any additional outages in Androscoggin, Cumberland, and York counties would be pretty limited going forward as the strongest winds are now pushing through the mid-coast, Penobscot Bay, and eastern Maine. Now let's talk about the rain. We still have rain to go in about all of the state, but the heaviest rain over the next 2 hours will shift into central and eastern Maine. There may even be some rumbles of thunder with this line you see here at midnight going through the Bangor area. That then moves into down east, and by 3 in the morning, it should be dry in a lot of southern Maine. And by the time everybody wakes up tomorrow morning, the sun will actually be out, and it will be colder. The 50s that we have out there now now will be gone by morning. Once that cold front comes through, the cold air will come right back in. Fortunately, not really looking at a flash freeze situation or anything like that. It doesn't get dramatically cold, and also there will be some wind which will help dry out the low levels. So there could be a few icy spots up around Route 2 and into the mountains from that temperature drop, which happens a bit faster, but everywhere else we should be able to dry out before that happens. As far as the rainfall totals, approaching 2 inches in Portland, over 2 in Augusta, approaching an inch in Bar Harbor, and about an inch and almost 3/4 so far in Bangor. One of the concerns going into this storm was the fact that last December we had really devastating river flooding from a rainstorm combined with melted snow. It was on the 17th and 18th of December last year. This played out a little bit differently, and additional rainfall is on the order of about 1/4 to 1/2 an inch in southern Maine and 1/2 an inch to an inch or so in central and northern Maine. That won't be enough to cause big issues. We haven't lost the snowpack. The cold air today helped maintain a lot of that snowpack in the foothills and mountains. So we don't expect big issues with rivers, but there may be some minor flooding, poor drainage areas, susceptible, vulnerable, low-lying spots that usually flood when we get downpours. There may be some temporary flooding there. Some smaller rivers and streams can't rule out an ice jam or two. Ice jams are basically when chunks of ice break up and float downriver, clogging the river, backing the water up. Those are almost impossible to predict until they happen. So it's possible we see a couple ice jams tonight or tomorrow morning, in which case the Weather Service would issue a flood warning, and that's how we become aware of the situation. There actually is one flood warning, but it's for the Pemigewasset River over in New Hampshire. So local rivers, perhaps some minor flooding tomorrow on the Kennebec and the Swift, but so far, they're actually running a bit below forecast, which we like to see. And the Saco River near Conway may be near minor flood. We don't have gauges on every river and stream, but just to give you an idea, there aren't any right now that we are forecasting to go into major or even moderate flooding as we see it right now. So here's a look at your 7-day forecast. Again, the rain is pretty much out of here by daybreak tomorrow and well before that in central and southern Maine. There actually could be a flurry or snow shower tomorrow as the colder air moves in. We're in good shape for Friday and Saturday, but it will be seasonably cold with high temperatures in the upper 20s to low 30s. And the next chance for precipitation actually isn't until next Tuesday as we see it now. So as we talked about, the outage numbers have crept up over the last hour. We'll give you one more look at them. 22,000 CMP, 12,000 Versant, a little over 500 in the Emmett coverage area in eastern Maine. And these numbers probably will still go up for another few hours. So you can join us tonight on News Center Maine at 11. If you have any pictures or video of damage in your area, we appreciate if you can safely share it with us using the Near Me section of our app, or weather@newscentermaine.com is our email. Dana Osgood will be with me at 11, and we'll have the very latest coming up then. We'll see you then.